Step into the Roman Forum on a scorching summer afternoon. Merchants shout over one another. Senators stride past marble columns, and in the center a prisoner kneels, hands bound, waiting for the magistrate's decree. Rome was a marvel of roads, aqueducts, and order, but the price of that order could be terrifying. The empire did not just punish, it performed justice as theater. Pain, humiliation, even death were staged to warn every citizen that Rome's peace was fragile and bought with fear. Today we're counting down 10 brutal punishments of the Roman Empire. Some were swift, some slow, some so inventive they sound impossible, but all were meant to keep a vast empire obedient. Stay with me until number 1, a method so infamous that ancient writers described it in whispers. Number 10. The rods of discipline. Discipline kept Rome's armies unstoppable, and nothing showed that discipline better than the Fustuarium. When a soldier deserted, stole, or fell asleep on guard, commanders gathered the entire unit. The condemned stood alone while comrades formed a ring, clutching heavy rods. At the signal, blows rained down, first hesitant, then relentless, until bones cracked and the soldier collapsed. It was not only death, it was erasure by the hands of those he betrayed. Even minor mistakes earned lashes from the centurion's vine staff, the vitis, a reminder that duty outweighed comfort. Picture trying to sleep in a Roman camp, knowing one drowsy moment on watch could make your friends your executioners. And yet, as grim as this sounds, the next penalty branded shame onto flesh for life. Number 9. Branding and mutilation. Rome loved visible justice. Instead of prison, many offenders carried their sentence forever on their skin. A runaway slave might have fug, burned into the forehead. Fugitive. Thieves could be scorched with an F for fur, or lose a hand entirely. Officials sometimes ordered tongues cut out for perjury, or ears sliced for betrayal. Constantine's law against corrupt tax collectors prescribed nose slashing so bribery showed on a man's face. Even when released, these people walked through markets and forums as living billboards of guilt. Imagine bargaining for bread while neighbors stare at the scar on your brow, whispering about crimes you can never outlive. And if you thought a scar was cruel, the next punishment put suffering on display for days. Number 8. Crucifixion. Crucifixion, Rome's most notorious execution, mixed agony with propaganda. Slaves, rebels, and traitors were flogged until skin hung in ribbons, then forced to haul the wooden beam through streets thick with jeers. At the site, often beside a busy road, soldiers nailed or tied victims to a crossbeam and raised them high. Death could stretch for days. Muscles failed, thirst clawed at the throat, birds circled above. Soldiers sometimes offered sour wine to keep victims conscious, prolonging the lesson for passers-by. After Spartacus's revolt, 6,000 crosses lined the Appian Way, mile after mile of silent warnings. Picture trudging past, dust clinging to sandals, while rows of motionless bodies reminded you Rome forgives nothing. Yet even crucifixion lacked the strange humiliation of the next ordeal. Number 7. The fork of infamy. Not every punishment ended life. Some destroyed reputation. The furca, or fork of infamy, was a wooden yoke fitted across neck and shoulders. Criminals, often soldiers guilty of cowardice, staggered beneath its weight, while crowds jeered. Splinters scraped skin. The yoke forced a painful stoop. A stumble risked sprawling face first before laughing children. The point wasn't pain alone, it was a spectacle, turning a man into a walking caution sign. Would you rather take a beating in private or shuffle for hours, bent double, while strangers mocked? As harsh as that sounds, the next sentence trapped victims with something far worse than ridicule. Number 6. The sack of death. Poena cullei, parricide, murdering a parent, horrified Romans more than almost any crime. Their answer was the poena cullei, or penalty of the sack. Executioners sewed the culprit inside a leather bag with a dog, a rooster, a snake, and sometimes a monkey. Inside, claws and fangs slashed as the sack was hurled into the river Tiber. The chaos symbolized a world turned upside down, a child destroying the source of life. Ancient writers tell of crowds gathering on bridges, staring at the swelling bundle as water swallowed it whole. Could you keep your sanity while trapped in darkness, animals thrashing against you, knowing breath and river would soon finish the work? The next fate fed victims to predators, while thousands cheered. Number 5. Death by beasts. Damnatio ad bestias. Roman arenas staged law as entertainment. Condemned prisoners, deserters, or foreign captives faced lions, leopards, or even elephants in a spectacle called damnatio ad bestias. Sometimes victims wielded a spear or club. More often they were unarmed, pushed into sand as iron gates creaked open. The roar of animals mingled with cheers from the stands. For spectators, it was thrilling. For the condemned, terror without escape. Each mauling broadcast imperial power. If Rome could command beasts, it surely ruled men. Would you lunge at the predator, praying for a quick blow, or freeze as claws closed in? Still, some sentences sought torment through labor instead of teeth. Number 4. The mines of misery. Slow death awaited those sentenced to damnatio ad metallum, condemnation to the mines. Shackled convicts trudged into shafts lit by smoking torches. Dust-coated lungs, stone splinters cut hands, and guards barked at laggards. Food was thin porridge. Injuries meant abandonment. Collapse from exhaustion brought lashes rather than pity. Few survived a year, and those who did emerged pale, coughing, half-broken. Would you choose one clean stroke of steel, or months clawing at rock, knowing daylight meant another descent? Still, there were punishments where earth itself became the weapon. Number 3. The Tarpeian Rock. On the Capitoline Hill loomed the Tarpeian Rock, a cliff reserved for traitors. Offenders were paraded upward as heralds announced their treason. At the summit, guards shoved them toward a jagged drop overlooking the forum. Bones shattered on impact. Survivors were stoned until still. The location was deliberate. Betrayal died within sight of Rome's beating heart. Citizens gathered below, faces upturned, reminded that loyalty kept you standing. Imagine hearing the city hush behind you as sky and stone filled your vision. And yet, some crimes drew fire rather than gravity. Number 2, burning alive. For arson, sacrilege, or treason, Rome sometimes answered with fire. Criminals were bound to stakes above pyres or locked inside bronze cages as kindling blazed. Flames licked upward, smoke curling while victims begged gods or emperor for mercy. Crowds packed the forum, watching law consume flesh. To Romans, it cleansed sin while destroying the sinner. Justice and ritual entwined. Would the threat of that heat stop you from even glancing at a sacred archive? As horrific as flames were, the most psychologically brutal penalties spared life, only to steal it at random. Number 1. Decimation. Among Rome's armies, mutiny met a punishment called decimation. When a legion disgraced itself, commanders divided soldiers into groups of 10. Each group drew lots. The unlucky man was beaten to death by the other 9. No one knew whose name fate would claim until the moment arrived. The survivors had to execute friends, sometimes family, then continue service beside their victims' ghosts. Decimation poisoned trust, welding obedience through dread. Imagine standing in line, heart hammering as stones and clubs waited. Even if you lived, you carried the memory, and Rome's warning, forever. From rods to rocks, from sacks of animals to the cruelty of random death, Roman punishments reveal an empire that prized order over mercy. These sentences weren't hidden. They were displayed to bend hearts and minds toward obedience. Which of these fates unsettled you most? Could you survive Roman law? Or would one slip cast you into history as a cautionary tale? Share your thoughts below. And for more gripping stories from the past, subscribe to Civilization Deep Dives. Because the deeper you dive, the stranger it gets.